Hello everyone, welcome to my Session 10 teaching memo. It's officially quote-unquote spring, although it doesn't look like it outside here in Poughkeepsie. We got between 18 inches and 2 feet of snow on Tuesday. Dr. Laura had 2 days off and a 2-hour delay on Thursday. Unfortunately, I didn't have a snow day. One of the drawbacks of teaching online. I did not have to shovel my way between the breakfast table and my recliner. This weekend I'll be participating in my 4th walk for the American Heart Association on Sunday at Marist College. I was an honoree 4 years ago after my heart event, which some of you may remember by reading my introduction. I've been the leading fundraiser for the past 3 years. There's my name. Leading by a large margin, although it looks like George is catching up, trying to catch up. But hopefully I'll be the leading fundraiser again. So that'll be this Saturday at Marist College. Be walking won't be walking with Dr. Laura because she is at a social studies conference in Albany. But I will be walking with my stepdaughter and one of her friends, so that'll be great. Little housekeeping. We had a couple of weeks without a discussion board or a written assignment, but that will change this week. I see that almost all of you submitted your first draft for the select response test, at least almost all of you in my one section. There's still a few people that are straggling in my second section, but I'm going to provide you with feedback, and I'll show you what that will look like in the discussion board. As you know, you post your initial selected response test submission here, and then you'll react to your group mates in this second discussion board. You can see there are my, I have posted my feedback to several of you already. I give general comments, and then if you download your document, your draft document, I have comments on that. And this is Adrian's copy. You can see that I have comments on the side here. So that is where a lot of the feedback will be. So I'll give you some general feedback, and then I'll have feedback on your draft. So most of what I saw is that I found is that the quality of your learning targets. A lot of your learning targets are vague or not specific, or really don't match or align with what you're assessing. Like somebody said, students will be able to assess, and then there's questions, knowledge questions. So assessing is a performance task. You can't test somebody assessing something with a selected response test. You can evaluate, you can do compare and contrast, you can make inferences, but you can't you can't see somebody assess. So be careful. Use the verbs that I have posted in course materials, I believe in both sessions 5 and 6. Again, several of the tests I've looked at do not have any learning targets that are reasoning or no reasoning questions. And that's understandable because knowledge type questions are the easiest ones to ask. How many videos do you need? How long should the video be? What are the 3 sections of the EdTPA, which to me is the lamest question. Please don't ask questions that easy, okay? Because someone can glean that right, and I'm not trying to insult anybody, so I apologize if you're taking it that way. But those are easy questions. You will not be able to tell if somebody really knows the EdTPA by asking simple questions. You know, what are the 3, how many rubrics are there? You know, 5, 10, 15. That is not real deep information that will help your classmates pass the EdTPA. So, as I mentioned in my last teaching memo, try to delve into the nuances of the rubric and stay away from 5 because, you know, that's not something that you really need to worry about. The EdTPA evaluators don't like to give 5s, so try to focus on 2, 3, and 4. Those are the areas that most of you will fall in. I would recommend doing that. Here's a question, and I think I used this last week. In order to receive a level 4 on the using feedback to guide further learning rubric, which of the following would make more sense? So notice that it's an inference. You have to, okay, which one of these makes more sense? So that is an example of a reasoning question. I gave the bias quiz last week, which was true-false. There was one question there that talked about, and a lot of people had problems with this, about empirical versus judgmental methods of determining bias. You can read about this in our text on pages 132 to 135. There are only 2 ways a test can be biased: by offending someone or unfairly penalizing them based on their quote-unquote subgroup membership. Typically, large-scale testing companies have used bias review panels to do this. So this would be a judgmental method. Of course, there's also, after the test is taken, to see if there's any questions that one group may be scoring poorly on. And this is an empirical way of doing it. So it's gathered after the test is done by either a pilot group or by the actual test group itself. And Popham wrote about disparate impact, which is one of our vocabulary words. And even this method doesn't prove that a test is biased. And that was question number 1. So just some food for thought there. In this session, this week's presentation is going to be on a little comparison between the No Child Left Behind Act of 2001 and the Every Student Succeeds Act. I haven't updated this since I updated this last year because the Every Student Succeeds Act was just signed into law in December of 2015. Now the Trump administration is doing a lot of finagling and is changing the regulations of what is going to be required of states in their plans that they send into the federal government. So I'll have to wait to see how this is going to flesh out before I can update my presentation. These are my learning targets. These 4 can be found on my Session 8 folder, so look at them and make sure that this is what you walk away with. You know, what is a Heidi score? How is it determined? And the other 3 learning targets as well. There are many resources that you may connect to in writing your double entry journal this week. You have a double entry journal this week, and there are on appropriate and inappropriate test preparation. Make sure you watch my presentation so you know what I think is important and that you mention those things in your double entry journal. And then you connect it. Some of the material, it's in both Session 8 and Session 9 course materials. So make sure you go ahead and look at those course materials as well. It's not due for 2 weeks, so you have plenty of time to write it. But you need to mention test anxiety, inappropriate test prep practices, how to relieve test anxiety, how to relieve stress, etc., etc. So there's a lot of good stuff that you can take away from this if you go into the auxiliary materials that I provided. So it's not due for 2 weeks till April 2nd. There's a lot of material you do not, notice the emphasis, you do not have to mention all of them. But you should connect to some stress and test anxiety article. You should connect to some, what is good test prep, etc., etc. So that's it for your double entry journal. You're also going to download and take the tests of your group mates this session. Now, try to take them as a closed book exam. I know most of you won't do this, but that's fine. After you complete it, upload it on the second discussion board, the one I just showed you where I had my feedback, and give them feedback. Now I have an article in course materials for this session that talks about or describes how to give effective feedback. I believe, let me see if I have it in my assignments. Yeah, it's in the assignment folder, 7 Keys to Effective Feedback by Grant Wiggins. Look at that article so you're going to have an idea of how to give feedback and what's the difference between advice and good feedback. And criticism and good feedback. So that's what you'll be doing this week, and this the discussion board for your feedback is due at the end of this week, so make sure you do that. There's only, in most groups, there's only 5 of you. So in order to respond to 5 different people, you have to go into one of the other groups. If you want to respond to 9 different people to get that A+, you have to go into probably almost all the groups. But it's going to be graded on the modified rubric, which just has to do with your initial post, making it within the first week if you want distinguished, or the first 3 days if you want advanced, and then doing at least 6 postings. That's including your initial post. So you have to do 6 posts on a minimum of 3 separate days. That means you got to respond to 6 people. You got to take 6 people's tests if you want to get a distinguished on 3 separate days. So that's it for this week. I will talk to you all in 1 week. Just want to make sure I didn't miss anything. Nope, that's it.